here. That's the deep south. Things were very hard back in Alabama 200-300 years ago, and even in 1965, when we were marching for civil rights, voting rights. As stated, I participated in all three marches from Selma to Montgomery. Prior to that time, my father was very active in the NAACP, National Association for the Advancement of Colored People. He was the president, and as the president, he was targeted by the Klan for murder, and harassment, etc. Needless to say, he was blacklisted from having a job, obtaining loans, etc. But he continued on and he continued to stand. He petitioned the superintendent of schools in Selma, which we had a apartheid type of system, very segregated all the way, in housing, in the school system, etc. He petitioned the superintendent to integrate the school system. This was prior to Brown v. Board of Education. And there were hundreds of names on the petition. The names of the folks were published in the paper, in the local Selma Times Journal. And as a result, those names, black folks whose names appeared on that petition, were fired from their jobs and harassed, etc. All of them took their names off of that petition except 8. My father was one of the 8, and they called them the courageous 8. And so they honor them every year for their courage. All of us must stand up and be courageous. Young folks, and our seniors and older folks, stand up for what you believe in. Stand up for justice and equality as espoused by Dr. Martin Luther King, for which you offered the service day. I realize that some of you did not have to come this morning and participate and volunteer. So your service is an honorable one. So we thank you and applaud you. Out of a population of approximately 30,000 back then, Selma population, over 17,000 to 18,000 were black. So there was a majority, we were the majority population. But out of that 17,000, how many blacks do you think were registered to vote? I'll ask this young lady right here. A young man. Young lady? Okay. You got it. Less than 150 black folks were registered in Selma. That's why we had to get out and vote and march and demonstrate. We were marching and demonstrating in Selma before Dr. King arrived in '65. Dr. King, as you know, was involved in the bus boycott in Montgomery, Alabama with Rosa Parks. He was jailed in Birmingham, Alabama after the bombing of the church where those girls were killed. His house was firebombed. And just as a background information says, and I'm sure you know this, that I consider Dr. King a genius. You don't hear that word thrown around with Dr. King, but he graduated from high school at the age of 15. He graduated from college, Morehouse College, at 19. He went on and obtained degrees from Crozier here in Pennsylvania, Theological Seminary, I believe, and Boston College, where he got his doctorate degree in systematic theology. Dr. King is a great man, he's a great person, he was nonviolent, and as you know, his philosophy derived from Mahatma Gandhi of nonviolence. So we had to, with only 150 registered voters, more or less, in Selma, we couldn't effectuate any kind of change in the political process. Nothing. And so that's why the powers to be and law enforcement blocked us in every way from voting. They would use the jelly bean test, literacy test, that guys from Harvard could not pass, and Yale. Testing your knowledge of American history. That was a way to keep us from voting. The jelly bean test was one where they put a jar of jelly beans and you're supposed to guess how many jelly beans were in that jar. I don't care what you guess, you were wrong. It's those kinds of shenanigans that occurred. So we had to march and vote. The first march from Selma to Montgomery, Dr. King wasn't there. He was in Atlanta. But we marched because of Jimmy Lee Jackson and Marion, Alabama had been killed. And so we had to go to Montgomery to let Governor George Wallace know that we didn't like the shooting of innocent black folks, even back then, 50 years ago. And the law enforcement powers to suppress us. We were suppressed in every field of endeavor. You mentioned the shoe shine boy, I was a shoe shine boy. I was a paper boy because my father was the editor of the local paper, black paper, from the 4th grade up until the 11th grade. 12th grade is when I became a shoe shine boy. Those were the only opportunities available to me as a young person. Shoe shine boy, paper boy. They wouldn't allow us to dream beyond being a shoe shine boy, paper boy. At the end of it, boy, which was, that was the expectation of young folks in Selma, Alabama, and throughout Alabama. I could not matriculate at the University of Alabama at that time, or any of the predominantly white schools. I attended Tennessee State as a historical black school. University of Kentucky was an innovative spot. And I'm thankful for those opportunities. God was on my side. So the first march, and let me know when the bell is ready to ring the bell. The first march was on the March the 7th of 1965. We had been briefed that we would encounter law enforcement once we crossed over the bridge. We marched 2 by 2 going across the bridge, and when I looked over the bridge, I saw a sea of law enforcement. We had been briefed that don't rub your eyes if they use tear gas. Was I scared? Yes. I was very scared. I had my running shoes on. We crossed the bridge, and at the front, we couldn't hear. I was somewhat in the middle. They told the leaders, John Lewis and others, to turn around. We didn't turn around. So we dispersed the tear gas, and we ran for cover. You have the Edmund Pettus Bridge, and we've got a picture of that that we can show at some point. But we ran across, we started running. The Alabama River flows beneath the Edmund Pettus Bridge. The only way you could get back across to the church was to cross the bridge. And the sheriff and state troopers and posse members were plummeting young folks and old folks with billy clubs, sticks, and trampling them with horses. because Governor Wallace said, don't let them get out of Selma. I was running so hard, I was running to the water, going down a hill to the Alabama River, until I realized I couldn't swim too good. The swimming, because the facilities were not integrated, we learned how to swim in the creek, or creek. And so the only thing I knew was dog paddling. You can't get across the Alabama River, dog paddling. So I immediately turned around and went behind a building and waited until the commotion died. Women, men, and others were screaming and hollering, and billy clubs were swinging everywhere. There was traffic folks with horses. The biggest billy club I've ever seen was on that run from Selma to Montgomery University. The billy club, one guy, several guys had billy clubs on the street. From right here over here, and they'll reach out and tap you while you're running, bedlam, trying to get back to the church. Without elaborating too much more, the second march, that's when Dr. King said, all citizens of goodwill come to Selma, we need you. We had rabbis, and, Jews, my Jewish brothers, and Protestants, and you name it, were in Selma. They came in mass, accepted Dr. King's clarion call to help us. But during that march, the beautiful thing that came out of that is the rest of America saw what we were dealing with in Selma. A tyrant sheriff, tyrant law enforcement that would brutalize nonviolent citizens just for the right to vote. Just for the right to vote. So a little note here is that when you get old enough to vote, your vote matters, irrespective of the party. Vote. Vote your conscience. Don't be persuaded by false information and demagoguery, etc. Vote your conscience, but vote. Amen? I'm off script a little bit, but so the second march, folks were disappointed when Dr. King, who led the march, said the troopers were there again to stop us. We prayed, and turned around and went back because there was an injunction that prohibited us from marching all the way on the public highways. On the third, and a lot of folks were disillusioned and mad with Dr. King because they didn't go all the way. Now, how were we to go all the way? We didn't have lunch, we didn't have a backpack, we didn't have food. We were expected to be turned around. Third march, as you know, Judge Johnson lifted the restraining order, and we marched all the way to Montgomery, Alabama, 50-mile trek. I marched the first leg because they wouldn't let everybody march the full distance, and I marched the last leg. Same thing with Dr. King, he didn't march the whole distance. We had one gentleman, white, we were white and black together, as you have seen in the movie itself and in other places. One guy who had one leg and a crutch, he marched the whole distance. The whole distance. For the rights of black folks to receive justice and equal treatment under the banner of Dr. Martin Luther King, nonviolent movement. And out of that, part of the movement, we got the Civil Rights Act of 1964, and then the Voters' Rights Act of 1965 that allowed blacks to vote in Alabama. And based on those numbers, we began to elect. We got rid of the sheriff, later got rid of the mayor who had suppressed us, and black, Hispanic, women became officials, elected officials because of the Voting Rights Act. Okay, now the pictures, that's a picture when we were in Montgomery, Alabama, at the end of the march. That's me in the middle with that little funny hat. I always wore my hat. Okay? I'm on the right of that lady with the flag. And on most of my pictures that you will see, I was kind of hungry. It seemed like I looked always hungry. Or scared. Because anything could jump off, but generally I was hungry. So the picture is a true depiction of me at that time. I was 17 on this picture, not even eligible to vote. I've got a picture, another picture where I was standing between some nuns with my little beanie hat. We had just come off of a vigil on the left. See, I'm still looking hungry.